Clock, so we'll go ahead and get started, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so welcome everyone to the March meeting of the Union Township Planning Commission. We had Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call, please.
Bradshaw,
Here.
Brown,
Here.
Hayes,
Here.
Lapp,
Here.
McDonald, Olver,
Here.
Shingles,
Here.
Thering,
Here.
Squadrito.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. So next item is approval of tonight's agenda. You've got the revised agenda in front of you. We added one new business item that's scheduled for this month. Are there any other additions or corrections or issues with the agenda as it currently stands?
Move to approve. Second.
Motion by Olver, second by Bradshaw to approve tonight's agenda as prepared. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so our agenda is approved. Next item is the minutes. We last met on February 18th. So you have the February 18th minutes in your packet, starting on page 4. Are there any corrections to the minutes from last month?
I have some suggested editing, just copy editing, nothing important. But there's an extra space before Michigan under B, and Rao engineering should be capitalized, and Event Center, the center should be capitalized. So I made notes of those. Not substantive.
Are those all in paragraph 2 or not?
There's 2 in paragraph 1 and then 1 in paragraph 2.
Okay. Well, your careful proofreading missed one
And you,
additional error,
okay, where is that?
minor. In the third paragraph, right after Mid-Michigan College, there's an extra "that was," doesn't make grammatical sense.
Okay.
I noticed that during the extended public comment section, it says that it opened at 8:15 but closed at 8:25. I think that timing is incorrect, seeing as how we adjourned at 8:21 p.m.
Not getting anything past you guys tonight. Wow.
So
Unless a time warp occurred.
yeah. But I believe if I remember correctly, it was because there were no comments, it was opened and closed at 8:15.
Yeah,
So
that's
I
probably
think that's
right.
yeah.
Okay. So, Tara, did you get all of hers?
I
Do
can,
you
I was
want to?
looking for them now.
I can show them to you after.
Okay.
So she'll pass the ones she's marked, and then, like I said, just strike the word "was" in paragraph 3, and then change 8:25 to 8:15 in extended public comment. Are there any other corrections?
Move to approve with the amendments or edits. If you
Seconded.
Okay, motion by Olver, second by Brown to approve the minutes as corrected, as amended. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Next item is our correspondence, board reports, and presentation section. First, as usual, is Commissioner Thering, updates from Board of Trustees.
Thank you. On February 26th and March 12th meeting, both meetings we had discussion about a more strategic planning or feasibility study for replacing the Township Hall. It's, as it was explained in the beginning of our last meeting on the 12th, that this is more along the lines of preparing for the future, not for today. We all know that this building will not last forever, as it has some needs at the present moment. It is not necessarily something that needs to be upgraded today. So we're thinking 5, 10, 15 years, and possibly even 20 years down the road. But I think at the end of our discussion on the 12th, we were really focusing on getting more information on financing, different ways to finance the building. You know, the one thing we don't want to do is have people today finance the whole building for 15 years from now. So if we do a little bit today, and then when it comes time for the building, just speaking for myself, but I mean, that's kind of part of the discussion that we had. But down the road, then, you know, you finance them, so that those people that are in the township then all take part in the building. There were 3 options. One option was to maintain this building with an addition. Another option was knocking this building down and building another building complete on this site. And then the third option was to build a building in another location. I think we all kind of agreed that if we had to make a decision today, we would like this site. This was actually talked about, and a motion was made in July of 2022 to approve the funds to get the study done. And we had a committee that was made up. Was Tara, were you on the committee? Or Amy
No,
Peak?
Amy wasn't.
So there was people, Rodney, were you part of that? So we had staff and involved in the study, things that felt that were needed. So I thought it was very well done, and these are discussions that we'll continue to have as we have time, and I think it's a good thing that we're planning ahead. On the 12th meeting, we also approved to participate with the Isabella County Road Commission to brine 20 miles of gravel roads in the township. That's for 3 times throughout the season to control dust. Also, we approved a participation contract with the Isabella County Road Commission to rehabilitate 3 miles of gravel roads within the township, going Crawford on Millbrook, Crawford to Mission, Lincoln to Crawford, and Whiteville to Lincoln. If I have my notes correct, each mile will get 1,000 tons of 23A modified gravel. And those are my comments.
Questions for Commissioner Thering?
Did you say Crawford to Mission?
Yep, on Millbrook, which Millbrook is south of here. It's actually the south border of our township. So, actually, I think if I started in order, it would go Whiteville to Lincoln, maybe I wrote some of this down wrong, but I believe it's Whiteville to Lincoln, Lincoln to Crawford, and Crawford to Mission.
I thought Lincoln and Crawford are both north-south roads.
It's what's in between on Millbrook.
Oh, in
Millbrook
between
is
is-
the
okay.
road. I'm sorry,
Okay.
Millbrook is the east-west road.
Oh, okay, I
But the
understand.
crossroads
Okay.
are
Okay,
Whiteville
those
to
sections.
yeah,
Okay.
the sections. Yeah,
Okay.
no, I think I've got it right. So, yep.
Okay.
What are the next steps in the timeline for the Township Hall discussion?
You know, I think right now staff is going to go back. Manager Stuhldreyer is going to go and look for the information we need on the financing end of it. I think that's really, in my opinion, that's because we're not looking to build today. I think it's important that we maybe say in a perfect world, if we could pick one of the 3, what would we pick? But it's a $10 to $12 million project. So I think really our focus is more of how would we finance this? Do we want to start setting aside a little bit of money today for the next, 5 to 10 to 15 years, so that when it's ready, how do we go about doing that? How would that look? What are our options? So this discussion we'll probably have a handful more times this year, I'm guessing. And then my hope personally would be that we would have something in our budget this fall that would have a line item with that on it. So,
Thank you.
so it's ongoing.
Other thoughts? I'm sure you've already taken this into account, but I'm assuming any plans would include a raised dais for all exalted bodies to sit upon while they do the township's work, preferably oak with walnut inlay.
Just the chairman. Everybody else
Okay,
has to
I'm fine with that.
So,
All right.
That could adjust new business item A, the annual election of officers.
yeah, it could.
Mhm.
Just so you know, if you're
It could also draw some public comment. We have precious little public
Certainly
comment.
will.
The plan drew plenty of public comments.
Yeah, it really did.
I'm really glad that we're looking ahead. I think it's very important that we look ahead.
Was there a lot of public comment at that meeting?
We did. I think we had some misconceptions. So we had probably the fullest Board of Trustees meetings that I've ever had. But I really appreciate the citizens that showed up and voiced their opinions. I think, supervisor, before everyone got up, gave a little bit of a talk right in the beginning of the meeting about exactly what this was about, which is very similar to what I just said. So, although 4 or 5 people did get up and speak,
Some of the social media that I saw in the days leading up to that meeting seemed to indicate that it was a pending decision to spend $10 million on a new
Right.
facility like that evening. So
Right.
I'm glad to learn a little bit more about it myself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep. Nope, that's not the case. And we actually had one person come up that spoke about sidewalks on Bluegrass Road, how and we all are aware that there's an area that's grass and that the trail goes through there, and it's really, somebody is going to get killed if we don't do our best to try to get that project done with the proper lighting, because there are a lot of people that live out in that area. So I think that's one of the questions we as the board asked, what maybe would our next step be to try to accomplish that project? Because I know it's been worked on, I'm sure it's still being worked on, but I think I personally would like to make this more of a priority. Personally, I won't speak for the board, because I agree that's a very dangerous area. There's a lot of people out there, a lot of traffic out there, and people do go out onto the road, especially in the wintertime. So
That land is for sale though currently, so if somebody else currently owns it, shouldn't they be responsible for building the sidewalks?
I guess I can't really answer that.
From what they said at the meeting, what they came up was that some of the land that would be used that is adjacent for the sidewalks is not controlled by eminent domain.
Yeah.
So I think the board had put through plans to include sidewalks, they've been unable to do it as of yet because we don't have proper access.
They did not maintain, or they did not acquire the right of way, the proper
Yeah.
right of way. So, but that doesn't mean that the current landowner, or if it sells, a new landowner would say, no, by all means,
Yeah.
let's go ahead and get this project done. So we do have some funds to put towards that project, and I know if that were me and I could get some of the sidewalk put in without having to pay for it, I think I would be very excited about it, knowing how important it is. So.
Okay, any final thoughts for trustees? Okay, thank you very much, good discussion. Commissioner McDonald's not here, so she won't be able to give us a first-hand report from ZBA. I don't believe they've met. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and wait for something to happen there that will eventually be reported to us. Next item is we always take time to give commissioners an opportunity to ask any questions that they might have about the Community and Economic Development Monthly Report. This month's report also included some attachments that tickled my fancy, at least, because it looks like the state is going to weigh in and perhaps take some steps that might have an impact on some of our local issues. But I don't know if there's anything you want to say about that.
I'm certainly happy to answer questions about the monthly report. The backyard chickens item is really, it's essentially another report, so it's a separate item. But I can just say a few words about it. The first one is the state rep, Mr. DeSena, is very good at getting things through the legislature. He has a lot of good contacts, and he tends to move things along. And so this bill actually has, and forgive me for the pun, some legs. It might be chicken legs, but they have some legs to actually move through the legislature. It's frankly not a great bill. I think it turns upside down our Right to Farm Act, because it's actually two bills. One is amending our zoning act, and the other is amending the Right to Farm Act. But the idea of giving people some allowance for having chickens no matter what, that's fine. There are places where it works, places where it doesn't. He's not thinking about that. He's just saying we want to have everybody have chickens, and that tends to be how bills get through the legislature. Somebody just has a dream and goes for it. But what the main reason I brought it to your attention is, of course, we've had some conversations on this topic, and if there's an interest among the, essentially if there's a consensus among the commission to take a look at an amendment in our ordinance that would expand what we already do, which is fairly limited related to chickens, we're happy to provide that. But we really would like to get direction from you if you'd like to see something on that along this line of allowing a broader, providing a broader allowance for keeping of chickens in residential areas. We certainly can put an amendment together for you to take a look at.
But if this were to pass, that would become moot, right? I mean,
Well,
we would have to conform with the state law.
We would still have to amend our ordinance to conform to the
Yeah.
laws, yeah. So, I'm just bringing it up because this has been a topic of discussion.
Mhm.
And as I said, if there's interest among the commission to see some language, we're happy to provide it. I did have a couple of other minor, not to leave this topic, but just a couple of minor things that I wanted to mention, sort of reports, I guess. One of them is that you will be seeing a presentation next month from the group called, it's Maslow's Village. This is the tiny homes for the homeless. Some of you may have seen that there was a video, they presented to the board a couple of years ago, and we shared the video with the Plan Commission. And they are continue to move along their project to try to develop a community of tiny homes, a community for the homeless that will consist of tiny home units. Here somewhere in the township, and they have moved along in their activities to the point where we thought it would be a good time to have them come before the Plan Commission and kind of give you an introduction to what they're doing and answer any questions you have. This is a project that, if it does come into the township, would require planned unit development approval. There is no zoning district where this project can be allowed. So the only way they could come in is if the property were to be rezoned to a PUD. The other item I just want to mention is that we have our annual joint meeting of all of our boards and commissions, and that's next month. It's the day after our April Planning Commission meeting. It's the 16th. And that will be, is that 6 p.m.?
Yes.
6 p.m. at Jameson Hall over on the east side of the township. And I hear there will be refreshments.
Did you say the 16th
16th, Wednesday the 16th,
at 6 p.m.?
6 p.m.
So, questions from commissioners on anything in the monthly report?
I had one question on page 11, page 4 of your report, page 11 of the packet, about the FOIA requests. I just didn't know if that was a normal kind of number, or if that's a lot of requests within 1 month.
That's on the higher end. It varies from 0 to 4 or 5.
Okay.
There are, actually 0 is pretty rare now because we have a couple that are fairly routine. Almost every month they put in a request.
Anything else? Okay, thank you. We'll move on. Let's see, is there any other correspondence or anything else that any commissioners have to report or that needs to be discussed at this juncture? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to our new business items. The first new business item is the one that was added to the agenda after it was initially released, which is we have March is our month where we elect officers for the Planning Commission to serve one-year terms through the following March, or at least through the following February meeting.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think you skipped them.
Oh, I skipped public
Point of order,
comment.
skipped over
God.
7.
And
Get excited
such an
about elections.
important topic that I've essentially single-handedly instigated, but, all right. So, before we move on to election of new officers, we'll have public comment. This is the first public comment of the meeting. It's always towards the beginning of the meeting, and it's always on items that are not on tonight's agenda. We have a couple of public hearings, so that will be, people will have an opportunity to comment on the public hearing items, but if anyone is interested in addressing the Planning Commission on any item that's not on tonight's agenda, you're invited to do so at this time. We just ask you, if you're in the room, come to the podium, give us your name and address for the minutes, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. If you're online, make your presence known, and we'll set you up to talk. So, public comment on non-agenda items is open at 7:21.
There's nobody online.
Okay, so we don't have anyone online right now. People in the room are here for other purposes. So, going once, going twice. We do have an extended public comment towards the end of the meeting, so this public comment is also closed at 7:21. Now, can move on to election of officers. We have 4 officers of the Planning Commission: a chair, a vice chair who serves in the absence of the chair, secretary who normally does not take verbatim minutes, but rather keeps track of motions and conditions with regard to applications and so on, but occasionally does take the minutes if Tara's not here. And then a vice secretary who acts in the absence of the secretary. So we have the 4 officers. We'd like to have all 4 positions filled. So we'll start at the top. And so are there any nominations for chair of the Planning Commission to serve through February of '26?
I nominate current chair, Phil Squantrito.
Second. I'll second that.
Okay, so there was a motion by Shingles, second by Hayes, to nominate Squattrito to be the chair for another year. I will accept the nomination. Are there any other nominations?
Move to close nominations.
Support.
So there was a motion by Olver, second by Thering, to close nominations. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So nominations are closed. We've normally done this by a roll call vote, so I'll go ahead and continue that recent tradition. So roll call vote, please.
Lamb,
Yes.
Squadrito,
Abstain.
Brown,
Yes.
Olver,
Yes.
Shingles,
Abstain.
Thering,
Yes.
Bradshaw,
Yes.
Hayes.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Thank you. Next position is vice chair. Again, the vice chair, main duty would be to run the meeting in the absence of the chair. Are there nominations for vice chair of the Planning Commission?
I'll nominate Mr. Shingles, who's currently in the position.
Second.
So there was a motion by Brown, second by Bradshaw, to nominate Commissioner Shingles. Do you accept the nomination?
Sure.
Okay. And are there any other nominations?
Can you review who motioned and seconded?
Brown motion, second by Bradshaw. Any other nominations? Last call for nominations. Okay. Have a roll call, please.
All Waring,
Yes.
Bradshaw,
Yes.
Squadrito,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Shingles,
Abstain.
Lapp,
Yes.
Olver,
I shall provide an enthusiastic yes to make up for the abstention.
and Hayes.
Yes.
All right, motion carries.
Okay, thank
Here,
you.
here.
Thanks for the willingness to serve. Next item is secretary. Again, main responsibilities, keep track of important, like motions, conditions, things like that. Also signs the minutes, right?
At the risk of moving up accidentally, I will nominate Commissioner Lapp.
Support?
So the motion was by Olver, second was by Brown.
Mm-mm.
You accept the
By
nomination?
Theory.
Second was Theory.
Oh, was it Thering? Sorry. Second by Thering.
It's all good.
Need to be accurate.
Okay, she accepts the nomination. Are there any other nominations for secretary? Any other nominations for secretary? Final call. Okay. Call upon us to vote, please.
Bradshaw,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
excuse me, Squadrito,
Yes.
Lapp,
Abstain.
Olver,
Enthusiastic yes.
Waring,
Yes.
Shingles,
Yes.
and Brown.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you, and thank you. And then last, we should have a vice secretary because occasionally the secretary might not be here. And so the vice secretary would take the minutes and perform the functions of the secretary in the absence of the secretary. Are there nominations for vice secretary?
I nominate Tom Olver for vice secretary.
Second.
The motion was by Lapp with a second by Hayes to nominate Olver as the vice secretary. Do you accept?
I do accept.
Okay. So are there any other nominations for vice secretary? Not anticipating any, but are there? Any other nominations for vice secretary? Final call. Okay, roll call, please.
Squadrito,
Yes.
Waring,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Bradshaw,
Yes.
Shingles,
Yes.
Olver,
Abstention. Enthusiastically.
Lapp,
Yes.
and Hayes.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Very good. Thanks for that. Look forward to working with everyone for another year. Now we'll move on to our new business items that are, actual things that are coming before us. The first one is the text amendment. So Planning Commission initiated zoning ordinance text amendment to revise and extend limited allowance for additional building height for certain classes of applicants. And this is in your packet. We'll have an introduction from Rodney. We'll have a public hearing, and then we'll have our deliberation and action.
Well, thank you. This is an amendment that came out of our discussion from February meeting, as we met with Michigan College and discussed their event center project that ran afoul of our height standard in that B4 zoning district. During that discussion, you as a commission adopted the motion to give direction to put together this proposed amendment. So what you see tonight in the text of the amendment follows that direction. The intent is to expand an existing height exception in the ordinance and applied in a more limited way to public and institutional buildings and also to religious institutions, churches and other religious buildings. To expand that to include the college and university and also publicly owned recreation buildings. So as part of that, as we looked at that section, the bulk of the amendment is updates to section 6.34. We did add some clarifying language in this because certain buildings are allowed more broadly in the township than others And there's certainly some areas of the township that abut up to existing residences or residential areas or agricultural areas. And in order to ensure, as you have additional building height, that there's adequate light and air to those adjacent more rural activities, we felt there was value in adding some clarifying language. So you see that page 31 of your report or packet. It's part 3 of the amendment. You see some language there in the underlined text. Most of that addresses providing additional setback or additional screening where these buildings are in proximity to these less intensive activities. There was already language in this section about conforming to neighborhood character, and that's done through a variety of means. We did add a clarifying statement that buildings that are subject to that section 7.20, that's that building form and composition, very basic standards, architectural standards, that would apply. It doesn't change anything. It simply notes here that where that applies, that could also be a way to ensure neighborhood compatibility. But overall, the goal of this simply was to expand this limited height exception to cover the additional buildings at the colleges, universities, and recreation facilities. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I just had one question. I know related to one of the changes, specifically indoor publicly owned recreation facilities. I think about Maury Courts. Maury Courts is not a publicly owned recreation facility.
It's interesting. It actually is owned by an intergovernmental cooperative. The Isabella Sportsplex is owned and operated by the Cultural and Recreational Commission for Isabella County, which is, the township is actually one of the founding entities for that. So the entity is actually public. Underneath that, there are private nonprofits that do certain things, but the entity is actually public.
It is. Okay, gotcha. Just didn't want us to have an oversight there because I know the spirit of what we're trying to do.
Okay. Other questions for Rodney while he's up there? I mean, obviously, if you have them later, that's fine too. Okay, thank you. So at this point, we're ready to move on to the public hearing. This is an action that requires a public hearing. It's been in the newspaper, and so folks, it's been on the township website, so folks have been notified about it. We want to give everyone who wants to speak on this an opportunity to address the Planning Commission. So when we open the public hearing, if there's anyone who would like to speak on this topic, just make your presence known. If you're in the room, come to the podium, give us your name and address for the minutes. We ask you to limit at least your initial comments to 3 minutes, and then once everyone who's spoken has had a chance to speak, we'll consider recognizing people for additional comments. If you're online, let us know your presence, and we'll make arrangements for you to be heard. So the public hearing on the PTEX 25-01, Planning Commission initiated zoning ordinance text amendment is open at 7:33.
There's nobody online.
Okay.
Good evening. My name's Tim Beebe. Address is 2257 East Broomfield Road. You may have heard in the news that there's a parochial school that's been looking at a piece of property in the city of Mount Pleasant. They've hit some struggles. They are still trying to pursue that, but they have definitely hit a wall. And they may be looking to have to move to a different site. So the gymnasium that they're talking about would also have an issue with that height. So when we're saying Mr. Shingle's comment of publicly owned, I share that concern because if it's a parochial school, it's not publicly owned. So just mentioning it, they need water and sewer. Water and sewer is either City of Mount Pleasant or Union Township. So it's going to be in one of the two locations. And I would hate to go through the text amendment and then shortly thereafter have somebody come in and have to ask for a variance because it only said publicly owned. So that's all I have.
Okay, thanks for that information. Helpful, I think. Commissioner Shingley?
Section 6.34, it lists schools. It does not designate public, private, or private. It says public and institutional uses, but then it doesn't designate schools, which to Mr. Beebe's point, should cover parochial or private, parochial or public, because it just simply says schools. It doesn't say public schools.
I just want to make sure that.
Yeah.
It actually says business schools. It's actually not schools, it's business schools.
Oh, business, okay, gotcha.
I do apologize. A parochial school? I'm not familiar with the terminology.
Catholic schools are parochial schools.
Gotcha.
Schools.
So would they be considered private schools operated for profit? So then I think that they would fall under the, they would fall under that if they were a college. Well, I guess are they a private college? No.
K through 12.
Religious institution? I mean, it's,
So it,
I mean, is that technically, I guess it could be considered that?
I mean, it absolutely is, having gone.
It's
to
kind of
one,
both a
it's-
school and a religious institution, so
So-
I think it would fall under that, wouldn't it?
so this, the school, and they have looked at sites in the township previously as well. The school is proposed by a group of churches, local churches. It is certainly, in all of our discussions with them, it is part of their mission. And I suspect that we would honor that and recognize that. However, if you would like to include schools, and I don't disagree, or simply broaden to include recreation facilities, we can certainly do that. I mean, the challenge you have is if we include schools broadly, then essentially they can build the whole school much higher. The exemption is pretty significant. And it was intended to be for certain prominent buildings that may need additional height. As I said, the classic example is a church, where you have a steeple, and quite often churches are subject to, when a new church tries to build in the community, they run into trouble with building height. And this is something we did not want to have an issue with. And so the starting point for this height exception was actually religious institutions, to ensure that somebody wouldn't come and build a cathedral or simply build a substantial church with a tall steeple. There would be no issue with that. They could do it simply site plan approval, no question. But it also covered certain other prominent buildings that may need additional height. My thought would be is that as I said, that because this is a group of churches, and this is clearly stated that, I'm sure they'll state it in any application they might make to the township, this is part of their core mission, that we would recognize that and include them in this exemption. That doesn't cover necessarily every other circumstance related to a school. So if you wanted to, if you felt like broadening this to include non-public recreation facilities, for example, that might be a relatively narrow change to allow the gymnastics facility or gym facility to be a little taller. How tall are they looking? I'm kind of surprised that the gym would need to be taller than.
My concern is that it's going to be bumping that 35.
Because, I mean, ordinances, workshop equipment, none of that applies anything. That's already the definition.
They haven't gotten to full drawings, but I guess when I was listening to the comment, I went, that could affect, and right now it's about a 50-50 shot whether or not they're going to be able to go in the city. It's, you neighborhood group that has a lot of pull and has been able to shut everything down on that piece of property for the last 25 years. So,
So my thought would be is if you're looking to, I think they're probably covered. Like I said, I would view them as being covered by the religious institutions exemption, but beyond that, we certainly could simply expand it to include indoor recreation facilities. Would be eliminate the publicly owned statement, and that's an amendment fairly easily made to this relatively narrow change.
You think that's preferable to just opening it up to schools generally?
I would think so, because frankly, for most schools, most school facilities don't need the additional height. The actual school building, typically you build at least a couple of story building, probably 3-story building within even the 35-foot height limit would be 4 district in the similar height limits that are in the residential.
Yeah. Why do business schools need to be singled out? I mean, wouldn't they normally be affiliated with a college or university? And if they weren't, why do they need such height?
Well, this was part of your motion. It was part of that line item in the ordinance: business schools, colleges, and universities.
So that was something that I forget their name at this point. The folks that mostly wrote the last zoning ordinance put in there.
Right.
Okay.
Just simply incorporate.
I have a question for the verbiage. Couldn't we just after religious institutions, couldn't we put in parentheses including schools?
Well, but not all schools are religious parochial, so I wouldn't suggest that.
Okay.
And we do have separate. I mean, we have in our zoning district section, we have the land uses listed. So
Okay.
The suggestion is just we'll go with the listing there.
Sure.
If we, as I said, if we simply delete publicly owned, you would cover public or private recreation facilities.
My question is, are there any schools, colleges, or universities that are either not religious, not for-profit, and not publicly owned? If those 3 use cases cover every conceivable type of school, university, or college, I think we have it covered.
Well, but again, remember, this list is not general schools. It's actually business schools. I mean, think of a business school. What's that? Northwood. Thank you. Yeah. Now, Northwood now a university, but it started out as a much smaller business school that might not have been considered a college or university even when it started. But anyway, it's right now the use category is business schools. It's not schools in general.
Okay, so
this section doesn't deal with public schools or parochial schools at all right now.
would public K through 12 fall under public and institutional buildings and uses? I guess what I'm trying to get at is that I don't necessarily want personally to see the verbiage changed too much because specifically I'm most concerned about any private entities that are operated for profit trying to take advantage of the height variance.
Mm-hmm.
And that also goes to privately owned recreational facilities. I mean, I certainly wouldn't want to have a giant 40 or 50 foot stadium, in my backyard.
I'll tell you what, your question was a great one. I appreciate it. The definition is very specific. It actually says it includes K-12 schools and as well as other buildings used by public or government. But the K-12 schools is not. It doesn't differentiate between public or private. So we're covered because it already has.
Okay.
Okay. Excellent.
Okay, so it's still on the floor. Well, actually, the public hearing isn't the public hearing still open, or did I close it? All right, so public hearing is still open while we've been chattering away. Are there any public comments? Well, actually, we had a public comment, so are there any other public comments on the, in the public hearing on the text amendment?
Still no one online.
No one online? Any other public comments? Okay, so we thank the public for their comments, and we go ahead and close the public hearing at 7:44. So we're ready to move on to commission deliberation and action, which means it's on the floor for more questions, comments, concerns from commissioners.
I guess I'll go ahead and start if that's okay.
Yeah.
Based off of what we just heard there, I believe that the verbiage is sufficient for our uses. I think it covers all the foreseeable use cases that we all agree are important to have the variance for. Making sure that higher levels or higher institutions of knowledge, which could be like the trade schools, the business schools, universities, the colleges, and then anything that's even privately owned, nonprofit, like religious institutions, would also be covered, and it would exclude anybody who is trying to make a profit. So in that regard, I think that the text adequately covers everything that we had concerns about from last meeting.
Okay. Other comments, thoughts?
As a point of information, do you prefer to have the entire text read as part of the motion or just the highlighted or bolded part as the actual motion?
Oh, at the end of our report, page
Mhm.
29,
Yeah.
The bolded text could be a motion.
Terrific. Mr. Chairman, I have a motion.
Okay, have at it.
I move to recommend to the Board of Trustees that the proposed amendments to Section 3.4 permitted uses by district and Section 6.34 public and institutional uses of the zoning ordinance number 20-06 be adopted as presented.
I second.
Okay, so the motion was made by Olver with a second by Brown. Further discussion?
I think we got the bulk of the discussion completed last week.
Yeah. Just want to make sure I don't want to cut anybody off. Okay, if not, let's have a roll call, please.
Olver,
Aye.
Lapp,
Yes.
Daring,
Yes.
Hayes,
I,
Bradshaw,
Yes.
Squadrito,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Shingles.
yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, thank you.
Higher education may be higher.
Yeah, we had a mix of ayes and yeses. Was that an enthusiastic aye?
Yes.
Okay, so enthusiastic.
Sorry, Tara, I feel like I threw you off there when I went from 2 yeses to an aye.
All right.
Had to be different.
Okay, so we have agreed to recommend that to the Board of Trustees, so it's now with them, and they'll do their actions on that. Next item is a special use permit application for Old Hickory Buildings for an open-air business to sell accessory buildings located at 4694 East Pickard Road. It's PSUP 25-01. So, Ronnie?
Thank you. Everybody should have a copy of our special use permit report. It's dated March the 10th. We have 2 items on the agenda for this. The first is a special use permit. It's a public hearing item, and assuming things proceed with that, there's a preliminary site plan application that will follow. So our comments on the special use permit don't have a lot. We did introduce this at our February meeting as well. We went over some of the elements of the use. I think as we discussed in February, the reason this requires a special use permit is because there's no record of the previous automobile dealership on the property ever having one. It simply means it likely its establishment long predated any zoning ordinance standard that requires special use permit. This is a change of use. It is a different type of outdoor open-air business. So we gave direction that they would need to follow this process and secure the special use permit for the new use. You have the standards for special use approval. They're starting on page 37 of our report, and there's some staff comments there as well. Overall, we found the proposal to be very consistent with the special use permit standards. Item number 3, which is talking about the use being designed, constructed, operated, maintained in a manner compatible with adjacent uses in the surrounding area. including consideration potentially things like hours of operation, noise, screening, land use buffers, and other activities. We did note there a couple of minor details, very minor. That is, we did ask that the applicant provide information on the final site plan for their anticipated hours of operation, just so that you're aware of them. It is an area that some of those businesses are open at all hours, so we're not concerned really about the hours of operation, but we wanted to see them on the plan. And then the other item was related to parking, really two items, related to parking and some of the setbacks in clear vision areas on the site. Those are details. They're easily taken care of on a final site plan. But because they're items that can affect compatibility with surrounding areas, we noted them here under that item 3 and noted that as a can conform. With that in mind, we're happy to recommend this to you for your consideration and recommend approval of the special use permit. We are suggesting that one condition related to those hours of operation and parking. You'll see the setback information in the site plan part, so we didn't include that here. But we're happy to answer any questions you may have about this as we go along.
Questions for Rodney before we invite the applicant to comment and stand for questions? Okay, there don't seem to be any immediate ones, so thank you. And so we were told that you were away on a cruise last month. Did you bring us anything?
I wish I could have brought back the weather.
Yeah.
Mexico was really nice. When we came back across the now Gulf of America, which is remarkable, that's even on Google if you look up Google Maps. But as we came back across, the weather got worse, and by the time we got back to Galveston, it was in the 30s. So it was welcome back to the States. I didn't really have any other comments. I just needed one thing clarified, and it has to do with the setbacks. If this were a car lot, and I mean, we're selling inventory, whether it's cars or whether it's a small structure. And to be quite honest, they're about the same size. They're about 8 foot wide, 16 foot long. Do the setbacks, what are the setbacks for, where are we?
You looking for the corner stuff, or are you looking for the perimeter yard?
The perimeter?
So that's listed, it's not listed here, it's in the preliminary, it's in the
Yeah,
report.
those would be standard setbacks though, right?
Yeah, just the zoning district
Okay.
setbacks.
But if that's for structures, right?
Selling structures.
I'm selling inventory. If
You're
it
selling-
was a car, would you allow it any closer?
No.
No?
No,
Okay.
not the new facility.
Okay.
This one, the pavement, certainly was in the setbacks, but it's a facility that was built a very long time ago.
Yeah. No,
It
I
would have
guess
to meet the setbacks.
my question was, if it was a car lot, would the cars need to be 10 foot back?
Yeah.
That's all I needed. That was my question. If it was just because they were buildings, but if it's for any outdoor sales item, then I have no other questions.
Okay.
Ronnie, you tied that one up nicely.
All right. So we've heard from the staff and the applicant. This is a special use permit, so there is a public hearing once again. Well, in this case, the adjacent property owners were notified within the required boundaries, and it was in the newspaper and so on. So as usual, we want to give everyone who wants to speak on this an opportunity to speak. So when we open the public hearing, if you're in the room, come to the podium, give us your name and address for the minutes, limit your comments to 3 minutes. If you're online, make your presence known and we'll make arrangements for you to be able to speak. So the public hearing on special use permit application 25-01 is open at 7:54.
There's nobody online.
Okay, we're noting that there is not anybody in the online room at this point. And seeing audiences here for other purposes, or they are not a public to comment. They're in other roles. Any comment, any public comments on the special use permit application? Last call for public comments. Okay, let the record show that no public comments were offered. If we hear screeching tires and someone runs in breathless, we will let them speak. But the public hearing on this is closed at 7:55, with, at least for now, the record showing that no public comments were offered. All right, so we're ready to move on to commission deliberation and action, which means this is before us. It is on us. And in fact, under the new ordinance, we are the deciding body. So if we approve the special use permit, then it's approved. So usually what we've done in the past is to go through the criteria, the standards for special use approval, which are in the report, but rather than, we take cognizance of what's in the report, but we attempt to answer those questions for ourselves. If there's any concerns that commissioners have, they should voice them at this point. But so if that's okay with everybody, then I'll just kind of quickly, note these different items, and then if you have any comments, commissioners, please offer them. So the first one is that the proposed land use is identified in Section 3 as a special use in the zoning district. That's true. The location, design, activities, processes, materials, equipment, and operational conditions of the special use will not be hazardous, detrimental, or injurious to the environment or the public health, safety, or general welfare by reasons of traffic, noise, vibration, smoke, fumes, odors, dust, glare, light, drainage, pollution, or other adverse impacts. Doesn't really seem that it will be, but if folks have concerns, they should voice them. Special use will be designed, constructed, operated, and maintained in a manner compatible with adjacent uses, the surrounding area, and the intent of the zoning district. Where determined necessary by the Planning Commission, the applicant has provided adequately for any restrictions on hours or days of operation, minimization of noise, and screening improvements or other land use buffers to ensure land use compatibility and minimize adverse impacts. Staff noted that hours of operation should be confirmed. Do you know anything about hours of operation?
I'm gonna have to ask, but it's going to be typical business hours. The lot is not going to be locked as far as gated. So can somebody come in there and look in off hours? Yes. Can they sell a building? No, nobody's gonna be there. So it's gonna function like a car lot, where people may come in on off hours, but on fairly normal business hours, I'll get the exact hours and that will be put on by the city.
Okay. Questions or thoughts from commissioners on that issue? Okay, and we also dealt with the question about the setbacks, I guess, has been answered. Next item, the special use, location, and character is consistent with the general principles, goals, objectives, and policies of the adopted master plan. It is a highway business district, so. Thoughts? Okay. The proposed special use conforms to all applicable requirements or standards of this ordinance or other township ordinances. Okay, and apparently they may have a few more kind of dots, I's to dot or T's to cross to make sure that that's done. Approval of the special use location will not result in a small residential or non-residential area being substantially surrounded by incompatible uses. That doesn't seem to be a particular concern. Okay, privacy fence to the south. And then lastly, the impact of the special use will not exceed the existing or planned capacity of public or municipal services or infrastructure, including but not limited to roads, police, and fire protection services, refuse disposal, municipal water or sewerage systems, other utilities, drainage facilities, and public or private wells. The proposed use will not create additional requirements at public cost for services or infrastructure that will be detrimental to the economic welfare of the community. Okay, so those are the 7 items that, you know, to approve this, you're supposed to find that that it conforms to or is compatible with those 7 points. Okay, so further discussion, questions, concerns?
The one bathroom on site, that's gonna be with plumbing fixtures, not an outhouse.
No, no. There's an existing sanitary sewer lead that comes off that sewer. We're going to extend it to the building. And we've gone through the fire department review. They're requiring a fire hydrant to be added on that stub that we bring in. We'll tap off and bring out water service.
I only ask because the shed for the office looks so small. I was impressed you were able to squeeze it in.
Well, you gotta remember, it's
One
a
person.
one-person office, so.
Are you running electrical to the
Yes.
back of the property?
To the back of the property?
Yeah, for
No.
lighting or not?
No, not on the back lot.
Okay.
The back lot is for excess inventory. The showcase area is up on the asphalt.
And that's where any okay. Are there going to be security cameras or anything? I don't know how these outdoor businesses work.
That I don't have an answer for you. I'm not sure if they're going to have cameras. They will have security lighting that'll need to conform, and that's one of the items that's listed in here for final site plan
Okay.
is a lighting plan, which
Okay.
we'll put with it. But I don't believe they're planning on any lighting in the back.
Okay.
The idea of the lighting is for those people that come in after hours and want to walk through and
Right.
look at
And I believe there's car dealerships on either side right now, right? Of that space, or on
Ferguson-
one side?
it. Yeah, on one side. Ferguson is the next building, then there was an auto sales, there's an auto sales across the road.
Mhm.
Or was, I think they pulled up.
They moved.
They moved.
They just moved across.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
Don't see a reason why we can't repurpose a lot that's been vacant for, I mean, gosh, how many years?
One time.
Yeah, like that's kind of in keeping with our mission statement of preserving what we already have and repurposing, so.
There is an iconic trailer that, you know, if we needed to move it up to the front, we could probably save that.
I think we need to kick him out of the building.
Do we have like a bailiff?
He's violating some planning commission rule. I'm not sure what it is. I think he's in violation of it.
Okay.
I would support that. I just want to know, is it single or double? Yes,
Single white trailer.
single wide.
Yeah.
It is a classic.
And it will be removed?
Oh, yeah.
Probably in
Wanted that on
pieces.
record.
Probably in pieces.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if it will hold on to it.
Probably not.
Okay, well, if it suits you, we can have a motion.
I think several of us are missing some of the pages, including the motion
Yeah.
pages. I would be happy
Yeah.
to make the motion if you would lend me your page.
Yeah. So, yeah, I noticed that my packet ended at page 34 or something, so I emailed, and I guess
I
I'm
didn't
not
think
the
we
only
realized that we
one.
were missing pages.
It's on the PDF, but
Oh, there it is.
do you have the page or do you need it?
I have the page. I would be happy to make the motion unless you'd like to.
I will be glad to second your motion.
I move to approve PSUP 25-01 special use permit for OHB Old Hickory Buildings to operate an open-air business selling accessory buildings at 4694 East Pickard Road, PID 14-014-20-030-00 in the northeast quadrant of Section 14 and in the B7 Retail and Highway Service Business District, finding that their application can comply with Section 14.3.j, standards for special use approval, subject to the following condition. Add the notes for hours of operation and justification of the alternative parking standard on the final site plan.
Support.
Okay, so the motion was made by Commissioner Lapp and was seconded by Olver. Hmm?
Is it ready?
Further discussion? Any further discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Shingles,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Lapp,
Yes.
Waring,
Yes.
Over,
Yes.
Bradshaw,
Yes.
Quadrito.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. So having done that, now we can consider the preliminary site plan for that project. PRES PR 25-02. We talked about it last month, but now it's before us as an official preliminary site plan application. And again, we'll let Rodney introduce it, and then we'll hear from Mr. Beebe.
Everybody should have, and I apologize if you don't have, a paper copy of our preliminary site plan report dated March the 10th. It starts on page 52 of your packet. As it was said, this is the second part of our review for this, the Old Hickory Buildings project. Just a couple of things I want to highlight. As was said, this is a dilapidated site. It's an older site. It was developed many, many years ago. Our ordinance refers to it as a non-conforming site. Section 12.5, non-conforming sites was added to our current zoning ordinance to address exactly this type of reuse and improvement. What Section 12.5 does is say that it sets some standards. And number one, it says that any project, any site improvements need to include resolving any public safety deficiencies, which they do. They've taken care of those. The site is fairly minimal for this particular project. And then it has a standard that basically says that other improvements to the site need to hit at least 3 of the categories. There's 10 broad categories in Section 12.5, and the request is that scope of improvements include improvements in at least 3 of those categories. The idea behind that is that they're not improving everything. The idea is that we can look at a site plan that doesn't bring everything up to the current standard. So that we're not treating this as if it's a brand new site, but we're focusing in a more targeted way towards certain things. In this case, they've more than met that, as was noted. That the applicant has identified 5 categories on the site plan that they've satisfied, which we agree, and we actually would count a 6th one until you made your comment about not removing the trailer. But definitely cleanup of a blighted site, that removal of that trailer would qualify for that. So rather, far more than met the standard until Mr. Beebe messed that up. Beyond that, there are a number of items noted in our report, but I will say that these are all really housekeeping details. So we talked already about the setback item. There are a few corrections that need to be made, a few notes that need to be added, some striping for the connector from the sidewalk to the building. So these are all items that can easily be addressed in the final site plan. We're very happy to recommend this preliminary site plan to you for approval. We did include in our set of motions a motion that could add those conditions to address these specific items. But frankly, all of these items will come up again on the final site plan. So you could, if you chose, just simply approve the preliminary site plan as presented, and those details would all have to be addressed in the final site plan anyway. So with that, we're happy to make the recommendation for this preliminary site plan to you for approval. Happy to answer questions you may have.
Any questions for Rodney right now? Okay, thank you. Anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, looking at the site plan, just so that you don't wonder when it comes back. If you look out, the reason I was asking the question about setbacks. Up in the front, we've got display area, that would be in that setback area. So that display area is going to have to move. I'm probably just going to shift the parking spaces up to that area and flop the parking spaces in the inventory, because that inventory has got to get out of that setback. So I didn't want you to see it later and go,
Well,
why did that happen?
can you, like, I happen to be looking at page 3 right now.
Yep, so am I.
All right.
It looks like there's already a setback built into that. It says a 10-foot side setback.
There's a setback on the sides, yes, and we have to keep the structures out of the sides. But the front yard setback is the one that I'm looking at. There's a narrow strip that's parallel with Pickard.
The 15-foot front setback?
Yeah, and that's supposed to be
Okay.
20.
The
Okay.
proposed display area.
Okay.
Yep, that display area has to move,
Okay.
because
yeah.
that's in the setback area. So what
Okay.
I'm gonna do is move that area back over to the east side and move the parking up there, because I can put the parking up there, but I can't put the display area.
So this actually gets to the non-conforming sites element. There's existing pavement. If this site was built today, that area would not be paved. But it's existing pavement, it was used as parking. And so Mr. Beebe's exactly right, that as a non-conforming site, he does not have to remove that pavement from that area. He can't use it to display, but he can use it for parking, because it was used for parking as an existing site.
So there's gonna be some changes when it comes back before you, but that's the one that jumped out at me, and that was specifically why I was asking the questions.
Yeah.
You know, with that item, you have the cross-access there. You really don't have the depth for parking space with the existing cross-access.
I'll take a look at her.
You may just want to have a conversation with the neighbor and see if you can
Shuffle that?
Yeah, to get full depth parking space.
Yep, you're probably gonna have to add to the width of that. Okay.
I do have a question. So for non-conforming sites where you have existing asphalt like that, are you allowed to improve the asphalt that's already there? Or do you have to leave it as is because it's interfering with that setback?
No, it can be, the block can be maintained, which could include, resurfacing if you need it.
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah. It just can't become more non-conforming.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
So it's okay for parking to be in the setback?
Because it has been used for parking.
Okay.
Yes.
So if it were a new project, there couldn't be anything in the setback?
Right, that space would be a landscape area.
Okay.
if
But
you-
even though it's an existing and non-conforming, you still can't have the merchandise in the setback?
I can't, no. Because it's a new use, the activity of the use has to satisfy the ordinance. But as I said, existing activities that might be non-conforming with our current ordinance, like that parking, that existing asphalt, it was used for parking, it certainly can be used for parking.
And
Okay.
it's
And-
consistent in lining up with the car lot that's got the cars parked right out adjacent to it,
Yeah,
so.
all right.
But yeah, that was my reasoning for the question, was that area.
Okay,
So you will see some massaging of this in order to meet the comments.
mm-hmm,
So, thank you.
thanks. So, this one is just a site plan, so no hearing. We've heard from staff, we've heard from the applicant. We are reviewing the application, and then we're going to move to our deliberation and action. So any questions or comments from commissioners are appropriate at this time.
Rodney, is the recommendation to have the conditions included as part of this, just on clarity?
Well, it's certainly in there, and yes, that is clarity. There have been a few cases in the past where plans, we've simply noted, these are all final site plan details. So frankly, you could have a clean motion that approves. Because it's a preliminary site plan, that doesn't, not every detail is on a preliminary site plan. I would have no objection to a motion that simply approved it as presented, because all of those details have to be addressed in the final site plan anyway.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, turns out I have a motion. Let's see. I'm on the right page here. Move to approve the PRESPR 2501 preliminary site plan for the proposed OHB Old Hickory Buildings, open air business selling accessory buildings at 4694 East Pickard Road, PID 14-014-20-030-00, in the northeast quarter of Section 14 and in the B7 Retail and Highway Service Business District, finding that the site plan dated February 28th, 2025 fully complies with applicable zoning ordinance requirements for preliminary site plan approval, including sections 14.2.p, required site plan information, and 14.2.s, standards for site plan approval.
Support.
Okay, so the motion was by Olver, second by Hayes to approve the preliminary site plan without conditions. Understanding that the final site plan has to meet the standards for final site plan. Any discussion? Okay, if not, we'll have a roll call, please.
Hayes,
Aye.
Bradshaw,
Yes.
Waring,
Yes.
Shingles,
Yes.
Olver,
Aye.
Brown,
Yes.
Squadrito,
C.
Lab.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Company
Okay.
over at the planning commission tonight.
Very good.
Too much levity.
I'm supposed to get Terry crack.
Gotta get Tara on.
Good thing I understand all languages.
All right, so preliminary's been approved. We'll look forward to seeing the final site plan in due course. Now, and so we've completed our business items. So now we're at extended public comment. So this is a portion of the meeting where individuals are invited to address the planning commission on any issue, whether it's on tonight's agenda or not. If you're in the room, come to the podium, give us your name and address for the minutes. Limit your comments to 5 minutes. If you're online, let us know you're there and we'll make arrangements for you to speak. Extended public comment is open at 8:19.
There's nobody online.
Okay. And our folks here are all talked out. That's fine. We'll go ahead and close that up for another month. 8:19, extended public comment is closed. Final board comment. Any comments from board members? This is our last meeting before the equinox, so before the official start of spring. By the time we're here next, it'll be Hawaiian shirt and flip-flop weather, maybe. Could be anything.
I support the motion.
And final reminder, there are still, I think, although some of them have probably already happened, trainings available, so if you haven't already looked into that, be sure to look into that. But otherwise, if there's no other comments from board members, we've completed our agenda for March, and so we'll stand adjourned until our April meeting. Oh, and so April 15th is our next meeting. Is that right? No. Okay.
And the 16th is the.
April 15th is the next meeting, and 16th is the combined all boards meeting that's out at Jameson that you're all invited to if you'd like to attend.